Everyone always thinks working directly with a CEO is a sign of success. A career upgrade, a ladder to the top, a golden networking opportunity. People imagine important meetings, international trips, lattes with executives, and words like synergy, tossed around like confetti at overpriced happy hours. What no one tells you is that sometimes the top of the ladder is just a springboard into the abyss, especially when the CEO has the charm of a rusty lamppost and the morals of a starving caterpillar. When I accepted the executive assistant position, I'll admit, I was excited. The company was one of those tech startups that call themselves disruptive just because they slap generic AI onto everything. It was called Phantom Corp. And ironically, most of what they sold didn't exist outside of PowerPoints and buzzword-packed presentations. Me, the ever-idealist, thought I'd be part of something revolutionary. I believed in the mission, the values plastered on the walls, and worse, in the CEO's speeches. The CEO. Let's call him Claudio, because fake names can sound corporate and ridiculous too. Claudio was somewhere between 45 and 50, though his LinkedIn profile suggested a permanently frozen 38 since 2015. Slicked back hair that smelled faintly of gasoline, slim-fit suits that screamed clearance sale, and a carefully curated vocabulary designed to sound modern, yet it couldn't hide the aging jerk underneath. At first, he seemed kind. Smiled while introducing me to the team, said he expected great things from me, and that a smart woman changes the game of any leadership. Today, I know what he really meant was that he wanted a woman on his team, as long as she didn't touch the ball. But back then, compliments felt like encouragement. I gave it my all, showed up early, read reports, replied to emails with military precision, and even remembered to ask whether he preferred chamomile tea or black coffee with no sugar. Tip: he liked when I guessed, and if I guessed wrong, he'd remind me all day. The comment started off subtle. In the middle of a meeting, he'd turn to me and say, "You look really pretty when you're focused, you know?" Or, "I like when you wear that lipstick. It brings presence." I'd give a forced smile and return to the meeting notes. I didn't want to create conflict. I'd heard the stories. Assistants who complained too much were quickly replaced with more flexible profiles. Over time, the hints grew bolder. He started sending messages after hours filled with ambiguous emojis. He began inventing meetings that required closed doors. One day, after I brought him a printed report, he placed a hand on my shoulder and said, "I like how dedicated you are. That's rare these days, very rare. Shame some qualities don't show up on a resume." His hand lingered longer than any shoulder deserves, and I froze. Not because it was the first time something like that had happened to me. Sadly, it wasn't. But because I understood the weight of that touch. It wasn't just the hand of a boss. It was the hand of someone who could crush my career with a single sentence. I tried to rationalize. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe I was paranoid. After all, he'd never been explicit. Right? Wrong. The following week, on a speaker call with a business partner, he dropped this gem. "This is my assistant, but if she keeps working like this, I might have to promote her, maybe to company first lady." Chuckles. Me, on the other side of the table, resisting the urge to smash the phone in his face. The worst part? The partner laughed. As if it was normal, as if I was just there to decorate the table. I decided to go to HR. Yes, I know. How naive, right? But hear me out. I still had faith in the system. After all, the company claimed to respect all voices. I entered the HR manager's office, a woman who wore colorful silk scarves and spoke in a motivational coach tone. I told her everything. The touching, the messages, the innuendos. She listened with the same expression someone has when you complain about the weather. I understand your discomfort, she said, crossing her arms, but you know how Claudio is. He has a direct communication style. That doesn't mean he's being offensive. Maybe you're misinterpreting his approach. Yes, of course. Because his style included dinner invitations to his hotel room during work trips, suggesting we could review the agenda horizontally. That's when I knew. No one was going to do anything. HR wasn't a protection department. It was a shield. Not for employees, but for the ones behind the scandals. I considered quitting. But then I stopped. I looked at myself, in the company bathroom mirror, with dark circles under my eyes from giving my all to a job that only gave me abuse in return. And suddenly, I felt a cold, quiet rage that made me smile for the first time in weeks. If no one was going to defend me, then I'd defend myself. And maybe, just maybe, teach Mr. Claudio the true meaning of the word boundary. That night, I went home and bought a lapel recorder online. Discreet, portable, high-quality audio. It arrived in 2 days, and I wore it like armor. Every time he got close, every time he said something, every time he let some disgusting line slip, the little device captured it all. 3 weeks of recordings, 3 weeks of indecent flattery, sexist jokes, poorly disguised come-ons. One time he literally said, "You should stop wearing dress pants. Your body was made for more flexible things." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because that idiot was giving himself away like a soap opera villain, not realizing his reign of impunity was being stamped in high definition. I waited for the right moment. The company's big annual event was approaching, the investor brunch. It was the startup's Oscars. Everyone important would be there. Board members, major shareholders, strategic partners, and tech journalists. A spectacle of vanity featuring smoked salmon, Prosecco flutes, and fake smiles. And of course, Claudio loved being the center of attention. He was preparing a speech on corporate values and ethical leadership. Oh, my dear. Ethics? Well, then. What better stage to unveil the monster than the very altar he built? The date was set. Saturday, 11 a.m., on the rooftop of a 5-star hotel, with panoramic views of the city and egos inflated enough to tower over every nearby building. The Phantom Court brunch wasn't just an event. It was Claudio's yearly opportunity to parade his polished morality, give grand speeches on company culture, and of course be praised by investors in slim blazers and advisors who never quite understood what the company did, but trusted Claudio's charisma. So yes, Claudio was excited. His pre-event energy was almost pitiful. He spent the week rehearsing his speech with me in the office, adjusting dramatic pauses and asking which suit made him look more visionary. This navy blue makes me more approachable, right? Like the Latin American Elon Musk? Asked, adjusting his tie in front of the mirror. Totally. You're just missing the rocket, I replied, smiling with eyes already prepping for the bomb drop. The flash drive with the recordings was ready. I'd edited the juiciest bits because, yes, I'm thorough. I chose clips that went beyond uncomfortable. Sexist declarations, explicit harassment, lines that would make a corporate lawyer sweat in all the wrong places. The cherry on top? A series of audios where he described female employees by their bodies, speculated about submission fantasies, and laughed, saying, If HR isn't for covering shit up, then what's it for? I admit, I listened to that part 3 times, just for motivation. But there was one obstacle. I needed access to the sound system and projector that would be used for his speech. And that brought me to one of the most underrated characters. In this story, Ronaldo, the AV tech guy. A man who looked like he'd seen too much and cared too little. Wore anime-printed shirts and kept a collection of sarcastic mugs under his desk. I approached him on Thursday, 2 days before the brunch. I was direct, no sugarcoating. "Ronaldo, you hate Claudio, right?" He raised an eyebrow. "Is that a question or an invitation to open my heart?" I smiled. "A partnership proposal. I've got something you'll want to hear." I brought my laptop to him, gave him the headphones, pressed play. 4 minutes of respectful silence. When it ended, he took off the headphones and looked at me, with a mix of surprise and satisfaction. "That bastard's going down." "He is," I said, crossing my arms. "But I need your help to make sure the fall is public, painful, and, let's say, captured in HD. He didn't hesitate. We planned it all right there. The moment Claudio was about to wrap up his speech, Ronaldo would plug in the flash drive to the AV system. Simple, direct, irreversible. But I didn't just want to expose him. I wanted it to hurt. I wanted the audience to see him exactly as he was at the very moment he felt untouchable. The night before the event, I barely slept. Not out of nerves, but anticipation. I thought about all the meetings where I stayed silent, the uncomfortable looks from other female employees, the deleted messages, the times I left work feeling like a decorative object with a calendar, and I thought, enough. Saturday arrived. I dressed with the precision of someone going to war. An elegant, discreet, professional dress, but with pockets, because well-executed revenge requires functionality. I brought a backup flash drive, just in case, and a blood-red lipstick. Yes, symbolic, because every justice story needs a touch of drama. The venue was flawless. Hanging chandeliers, instrumental jazz in the background, waiters gliding by with trays of mimosas and macarons. And there he was, Claudio, surrounded by investors, laughing too loudly, shaking hands like he was granting blessings, gliding between tables with the confidence of a man who'd never been told no, or at least never one he couldn't overturn with a threat or emotional blackmail. Moved through the crowd with the calm of someone who knows chaos is minutes away. The speech was scheduled for noon. 10 minutes before, Claudio walked up to me with a crooked smile and eyes that said, "I'm in my kingdom. You ready to watch a master at work?" "More than ever," I replied, crossing my arms. He walked to the stage set up at the back of the room. The microphone was ready. The screen displayed the company logo and the slogan, "Leadership with Purpose." Internally, I nearly choked on my laughter. Ronaldo stood by the tech panel, throwing me a discreet, knowing glance. I nodded. Everything was in place. Claudio began his speech. The room fell silent. He spoke rhythmically, with theatrical gestures, punctuating phrases with vision, future, and transparency. Some heads nodded in approval. Others took pictures to post on LinkedIn with captions like, "Inspiration." And that's why we at Phantom Corp are committed to upholding a culture of respect, innovation, and ethics, he said, opening his arms like a tech pastor. That was the cue. The exact moment. Ronaldo activated the flash drive. The screen went black. The image returned, not with charts or slogans, but with a black screen and white text. The true face of leadership. And then the audio began. Claudio's voice, loud and clear, filled the room. You should smile more. It makes you more presentable. If you want to move up in here, there are other ways, less bureaucratic ones. A white shirt looks great, see-through in all the right places. The silence was instant, as if someone had cut the oxygen in the room. People stopped chewing. An older woman, likely from the board, dropped her glass. 2 investors exchanged uneasy looks. Claudio's face went pale, but he didn't move. He froze. And then came the final part. The cherry on top. If HR isn't there to cover things up, what's the point? No one laughed. No one breathed. The recording ended. The screen went dark again. The silence lingered. Until one woman from the legal team, someone who had ignored my report months earlier, stood up and said loudly, "We need to speak with the board." Now, Claudio tried to speak. "This is a setup. It's been manipulated." I looked at him, for the first time, without fear. "You always said you loved it when a woman surprised you, didn't you?" He stepped forward, like he wanted to grab the mic back, but no one let him get close. 2 discreet security guards were already moving in. A hedge fund owner backed away from him like he was radioactive. I left the room without looking back. My mission wasn't to watch the end, it was to start it. 3 hours after the brunch, Claudio was no longer CEO. The board acted quickly, almost too quickly. I imagine they did the math. Letting a sexual harassment scandal go viral on a Saturday would cost more than sacrificing a middle-aged white man with a history of inappropriate comments. I got the news via WhatsApp from the former marketing director, who used firework emojis as punctuation. Claudio would be temporarily suspended while an internal investigation was conducted. We all knew what that meant. The polite slap before the boot to the ass. And suddenly, I was a star. Not in the way I wanted. I never sought fame. Just justice. But it was inevitable. People called me brave, bold, a symbol of resistance. I was offered interviews, invitations to corporate events about female leadership, and of course, job offers. Lots of them. Some from companies that, just a week earlier, probably would have dismissed me for not being a cultural fit. Corporate hypocrisy blooming with the fertilizer of a PR crisis. I turned them all down. And for the first time in a long time, I took a real vacation. No notifications, no spreadsheets, no Claudio calling me his efficient girl. I spent a week at a friend's house in Parody, reading books with no professional purpose, eating cheese bread on the beach, and thinking, between swims, is it finally over? Spoiler, it's not. It never ends like that. In the second week, after the fall of the Phantom Corp empire, I got a strange phone call. Private number. Normally I wouldn't have answered, but I did. "Hello?" I said, already ready to hang up if it was telemarketing. "Hi, this is Renata Valle. I'm a lawyer, and I need to speak to you about Claudio." Dramatic pause. My stomach turned to ice. Not from fear, from instinct. "Is he going to sue me?" I asked flat. "No, he's dead." I stopped. Literally. As if the neurons in my brain had decided to take a vacation too. "What do you mean, dead?" "Suicide, 2 days after the brunch." "But that's not why I'm calling," she said. Professional. As if informing me about a company bankruptcy and not the death of the man I helped take down. "Then what is it?" She took a deep breath. office silence on the other end. Air conditioning and muffled voices. Claudio left a letter addressed to you. And just like that, the scene was set. It was starting to feel like the pilot episode of a legal thriller. The heroine receives a posthumous message from the villain. All that was missing was the plot twist. I just didn't expect it to be this elaborate. Renata met me in person. A quiet cafe in Sao Paulo. She was elegant, direct, and spoke with the speed of someone used to handling tragedies with rubber gloves. She handed me the letter. 3 pages. Handwritten. I started reading right then and there. You won. But I wasn't the one you should have been fighting. The first sentence hit me like a punch to the chest. I was an idiot, a bastard, a man addicted to control, pleasure, power. I'll never deny that. I did unforgivable things. But you need to know. I wasn't the only one. And ironically, not even the worst. I kept reading, each paragraph heavier, more absurd, or maybe more revealing than the last. Claudio confessed that, years ago, he had entered into a silent agreement with a group of Phantom Corp executives and board members. A pact of mutual cover-ups. They protected each other, buried scandals, manipulated hiring, erased complaints, all to keep their positions, bonuses, and public images intact. And the most shocking part, he was the scapegoat. When you started recording, they knew before I did. Ronaldo? He was paid off. The board members, they knew about the brunch. They wanted me to fall. They needed an example, a sacrifice. And I was convenient. A sexist, yes. A harasser, yes. But ultimately, just the most exposed. The dumbest. They threw me in front of your crusade like they were helping. They were just saving their own skins. I stopped reading. Not because I didn't believe it, but because deep down, I'd always known. The speed with which the board supported me. HR staying silent, then suddenly backing me. The invitations to speak. The public praise. That wasn't remorse. It was strategy. I finished the letter feeling like the ground had been pulled from under me. I'm not trying to redeem myself. I just want you to know. They'll use you too. Today, you're the heroine. Tomorrow, you'll be a problem. Watch out for the new CEO. The new CEO, of course. Her. Beatriz Santana, former Chief Operating Officer. Young, articulate, progressive on the surface. She'd been the first to publicly congratulate me on LinkedIn with a long post about women who inspire. She was the board's favorite. And now, with Claudio gone, she was in charge. I got up, thanked Renata, and walked out of the cafe like someone leaving a funeral without a body. That night, I didn't sleep. I dug through everything. Emails, messages, old memos. I started noticing patterns I'd missed before. Meetings removed from calendars, fudged financial spreadsheets, a shelved project right after a female employee had filed a complaint. I reached out to former colleagues. One of them, Mariana, had been dismissed after reporting. Beatrice. Yes, the new CEO. According to Mariana, Beatrice had a different tactic: psychological harassment. She manipulated teams, ruined reputations, sabotaged promotions. Once she made an intern cry until she quit, then said she was too sensitive for this market. And the worst part, the board knew. They had covered for Beatrice to keep the company clean of bigger scandals. They threw Claudio to the wolves and used me as a sword. A glorious distraction. I had to decide. Walk away, stay the public heroine, or take another step down the spiral and expose the next monster. I chose the second. I'd come too far to play corporate feminist mascot. I returned to the company disguised as a consultant. Ronaldo helped me, again, said it was time for him to make things right, gave me access to the file system, old backups, archived emails, and what I found was a goldmine of rot, manipulated HR reports, buried testimonies from former employees, suspicious fund transfers, a select group of executives receiving bonuses tied to results from projects that never left the drawing board, emails from Beatrice mocking employees and pressuring managers to give punitive feedback. I built a dossier, this time with copies. I involved journalists. A reporter from a business magazine I'd stayed in contact with, feminist, sharp, relentless, took the case. A week later, the article dropped. The Queen's Fall, the dark side of Phantom Corp's new CEO. The impact was even bigger than at the brunch. Beatrice was removed. The board came under fire. Investors began pulling out. The company became a laughingstock in corporate circles. But me? I finally felt something new. Relief. Not because I'd won. Because honestly, there's no real victory in a minefield. But because I'd chosen not to just be a symbol. I didn't stop at the first slap. Today, I work as an independent consultant. I give talks. Yes, ironic, no. But on one condition, I tell the truth. No PowerPoint, no motivational quotes. I talk about how companies only change when they fear you, more than they fear public opinion. Sometimes people ask if I regret it. Exposing Claudio. Causing a suicide. I answer honestly, no. Not because I wish death on anyone, but because he had choices, and he made the worst ones. He could have stopped, could have asked for help, could have apologized. But he chose to continue, right up until he was exposed. And in the end, he chose eternal silence over the discomfort of accountability. As for the others, let this be a warning. Recorders may be small, but memories are eternal. And me? I still wear red lipstick. Only now, it's not to look presentable. It's to remind everyone that this mouth will never be silenced again.